Everyone had in wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we're starting at 1 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This is I can't remember how many webinars we've done over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. I mean, getting on for 25, I think. It's lovely to see you all here. As usual, we hope to provide interest and value and to answer your questions and to give you information, knowledge, experience that you can take back to your own charities and benefit from. And that's the objective of this session. Just to let you know, there is a recording going on. If you do not wish to be recorded, then you please let us know and we will take you out of the recording. But the recording is going to be made available. It'll be on our website. It'll be on our YouTube channel as well. And I know that I get quite a lot of messages from people saying that they find this useful to have the recordings, that they can't attend the session in time, but they go back and watch them at a later date. So hopefully that's useful for everybody. Just wanted to introduce the most important people who are our celebrity charity guests today, and these are firstly Keith Wilson, only because you're on the page, but you're all equally important. Okay, you just have to be there first. So Keith Wilson, Director of Income Generation and Engagement at the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance, and Keith and I, we first met when you were in your previous role at Children's Hospice, did we not? But we've also been doing some stuff with you at the Air Ambulance. Ruth Cooke is Head of Fundraising, Supporter Engagement, Christian Aid Ireland. And Ruth, we've got to know each other over the last year or so, I think about 18 months, working on a couple of projects together. And Michael, we've known you for quite a few years now and worked with you on a number of projects. And Michael is Marketing Campaigns Manager for the Rainbows Hospice for Children and Young People, which is in Loughborough and covers the whole of the East Midlands and a rapidly expanding catchment area, it seems, Michael, sort of
it does indeed, yeah.
reaching out into Derbyshire and Lincolnshire and all that kind of thing. And these three stars are joined by Andrew. Andrew Peel is Trust and Corporate Consultant and leads all of our Trust and Corporate work for Pebblebeach. And Andrew and I have worked with each other for getting on 15 years now. And I am just me, and you probably all know me. I'm Ash, the founder of Pebblebeach, and I'm the guy that usually talks too much in meetings and writes most of the copy. So I will try and not speak. So my job is to not speak as much as possible in this one. Okay, that's the brief I've been given. I'm going to try and get there. Okay. So there we go. So the objectives from today are to hear the experiences and to find out and get a bit of evidence of what's been happening over the last year, and to understand what we are still learning from the cost of living crisis. I think, this is an ongoing situation, and how we're learning from that, and then to think about our plans for next year. And already we're working with charities on what does 2024 look like, and as Mike was saying just a few minutes ago, already thinking about Christmas and working on Christmas, but already into 2024 planning. What are the opportunities there? How do we look like? And hopefully we'll get some thoughts about what we can take forward. So the first question, and I'm going to ruthlessly and randomly, Ruth, pick on you, just because I'm looking at. So the first question we asked you to talk to us about and consider was, what are the challenges that your charity have faced in the last year? I'm going to skip to the next slide as well, because I think this naturally follows on is what we've learned from those challenges. I think those two naturally. So Ruth, sure. Just giving us a little bit of background about your charity and who you are, and where have you been the last year, and what have you been seeing?
Yep, sure. Hi, afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me all right. So yes, I work with Christian Aid Ireland, and we are an international development organisation responding to humanitarian crises around the world, but also long-term development work. And I think we have seen the cost of living crisis really clearly in our regular giving. The attrition rate has definitely increased in the 2023. It was probably, we were seeing maybe double the numbers of people cancelling as we had in the previous few years. So that was a very clear way we could see it. We also we respond to humanitarian crises. So Ukraine, for example, the earthquake in Turkey and Syria earlier this year. And we were seeing generosity to that, but we were then seeing maybe a slight decrease in then people giving to our kind of more standard key moments through the year. So we were worried about that unrestricted pot and the impact of the restricted pot on that, which is always kind of a balance and a tension whenever you're responding to emergencies. We have a big fundraising week in the year, Christian Aid Week, very imaginatively named, in May, and that's been going on for a long time. Even before the cost of living crisis, but even before the pandemic, we had seen a decline in people doing house-to-house fundraising on our behalf. So where volunteers go out and they give out envelopes in their area, then they go back and collect them again. That had raised a lot of money for us in the past, but it had already started to go down before the pandemic. The pandemic then impacted again. And the cost of living crisis has really sped up the decline of that. So then the challenge is to be thinking about, well, what is the alternative? What's next? Or do we hold on to this? So you want me to talk then about the learnings? So many.
I mean, I think it's fascinating that I'm familiar with your house-to-house campaign, Ruth, and also particularly south of the border, cash giving is still really quite important, isn't it? So it's that is a kind of almost a systemic challenge for you to say, okay, that traditional route is closing off. What do we do to change it?
Yeah. And for us, so often it's churches that are carrying out that activity on our behalf. And they might stop doing house to house and maybe turn to doing something that's internal in their church. So then they're only reaching the people in the church and asking them to give rather than going out beyond the church, which is what house to house really helped, was a good mechanism for that. But we've learned a lot, I would say. I mean, fundraising's always, there's so much to learn, isn't there, every day? I think we felt encouraged to not be afraid to ask our supporters to give. So we added in an extra unrestricted appeal towards the end of the year, which we worked with Pebblebeach on actually in the spring. And we only decided to do that in December. So it was a tight turnaround, but we needed to try and address that unrestricted gap. Yeah. And we were able to meet our targets there. You know, we think, but when I think we're tempted to feel, oh, we can't ask, we've asked too much, or, cost of living, we need to be careful. But actually, like you said at the start, we are giving people opportunities to feel great, opportunities to respond to the things that they're seeing in the news and in the world around them. I think the personal touch has been important for us. We started calling new regular donors and cancelled regular donors as well, to have that personal touch point, to build a connection and to ensure that they have a good feeling about Christian Aid Ireland when they think of us. Systems, this is not something that I would naturally care about, but I can see how important it is. Yeah. So we have really improved our income processing over the past 9 months or so, just with a new structure and new processes, which I think means we can thank people more quickly, and it also means we can analyse in a more timely way how things are going in our monthly kind of KPI meetings. That information is more meaningful, and we can respond more quickly then whenever there are emergencies and things that happen around the world. Some of those internal processes have improved, and we've been much quicker to market with our own emergency appeals in the past 6 months or so, particularly around the earthquake, and then with the destruction of the dam in Ukraine, we were able to get information out day of or next day, which that's big for us and quite new in the past 6 months, I would say, to be able to respond so quickly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ruth. That was very, and there's a few points I think we're going to pick up on. Thank you for that. Michael, can I turn to you and say, so looking back at your sort of last year, where have the stress points been for you, do you feel?
Probably split between two. So we've got the events being a big one. We rely heavily on events. Actually, the cost of living crisis and still kind of the hangover from COVID. Probably meant people were a bit more reluctant to sign up for some of our challenge events where the fundraising targets were a lot higher, or the sign-ups were higher.
Okay.
We also found that people are actually signing up to our events later. And we actually noticed that as we came out of COVID, like, people won't sign up as early. They're leaving it almost till last minute to sign up. So that's been some challenge we've been looking at. And then similar to what Ruth was saying with kind of attrition for our lottery, we've seen cancellations with that, especially with cost of living, as people are looking to tighten the belts, where they can stop those, I guess, donations in a way through playing our lottery. We've seen an increase in lottery cancellations, but interestingly, our canvassers who go out and about door to door canvassing for lottery have actually seen an increase in people sign up for regular giving rather than lottery. They're doing that, which has been really nice. So yeah, they've been our two main challenges. Some things we've learned from them is actually, we've introduced new events on the back of that, ones that have got lower fundraising targets, and things that maybe in the past we wouldn't have tried, but we're actually looking to try new things and, seeing what works and being open to actually, we might try this event, it might not work this year, give it another go, next year and see where that goes.
I think there's a few things there that Michael is really interesting. That last point is the willingness to give things a go. I think because for natural reasons and completely understandable. I think boards of trustees and finance directors are wanting to restrict and bring back expenditure, and they're worried about trying new stuff. But actually, what we end up doing, I think, is we end up concentrating just on the stuff we know with the people we already know do that, and we just shrink our world, and our universe has become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I think there's this hope that suddenly we're going to then wait to get back out to the big world, but we'll have lost a lot of the audience by then. So I think innovation. I've got the lovely Jude in the room. Apparently, no. Can you see the slide at the moment? So my background is a slide saying what challenges your charity faced in the fundraising last year, and I can see the 5 year. Can you see that?
We can see your intro slide, the state of fundraising.
Just the intro slide. Yeah. Okay, fine. All right. Sorry. That's because, I'm changing the slides, but apparently they're not changing for you lot. So I'm going to give Jude that and see if we can change that back. So bear with for the time being. I'll come back, Michael, on those points. Thank you very much for that. Keith, can I ask you to recap your experience, obviously, since being at the charity. How have you felt about what you've seen? Where are the challenges? And what have you learned from that?
Yeah, to be honest, Ash, we're still trying to emerge from the pandemic. So it hits us really hard, I think.
Yeah.
Fundraising is all about momentum, isn't it? And truthfully, we'd lost all momentum. We'd lost some staff and found it difficult to recruit. And we had next to nothing in the way of a major donor program, very little corporate activity. Really, the thing that was holding stuff together here was a really dependable, really strong lottery and regular giving program. But all that other stuff on the side had sort of ground to a halt, and yet everyone was really, really busy. And so for us, it was a case of smashing everything up and starting again with a completely new approach and trying to become more of like an opportunity factory, really, and forget about income. So that's what we did entirely. So we removed income targets from every member of the team, and instead measured them on KPIs like the number of people that they've taken to our airbase to see the helicopter, the number of meetings they've had, the number of people they've thanked, the number of phone calls they've made. And recruitment has been easier, staff retention has been a lot better, and it's just creating wonderful opportunities for us, and supporters are getting a better experience as well. So that's kind of where we were. We just felt like we'd ground to a halt, and just trying to do the same thing again but do more of it wasn't going to get us anywhere. But shaking things up, trying a new approach, and just getting out there and meeting people and seeing what happened has worked wonders.
And what was the impact? I mean, there's a very bold statement that you said there, and I think that if there are other directors of fundraising here who hear you say we removed all the income targets from the team, and people are probably still having a lie down, having heard you say that. So how did that go? What was the effect on income? Did people go, oh, brilliant, thanks very much, I'll go and do lots of lovely stuff but not raise any money? Or did it actually help?
Yeah, so it was a really nice process, to be honest. I had the likes of people like Wayne Murray ringing in my ears. So we started the process by speaking to the staff and saying, what are the levers you can pull to generate income? What can you do? So that's that list of, taking people to the airbase, thanking people, getting out there at networking events, whatever it may be. And so we just said, right, okay, well, that's it then. That's your KPIs. That's what you've got to do. When income's down, you do more of the pulling of the levers, and you pull this one a bit more and that one a bit more. And ultimately, we have a funny financial year. We run from October, and so that came into play for half of our last financial year, and income was up 12%. This year we're looking to be up another 12% or more, I would think. And so, yeah, it's been really, really positive. And more importantly, the staff are happier. And so too are those people that we're working with, to the point that corporate relationships, we're not talking about 1-year relationships anymore. We're talking about 3-year relationships and things like that. So it's been a really positive experience. I would say you introduced me at the beginning, Ash, as Director of Income Generation and Engagement. So there is still one person in this organisation with an income target. So the pressure hasn't all gone. It's just on here.
That's absolutely fascinating. I think that's, and the devil's advocate in me, of course, will say, and having spoken to a number of charities the last couple of months, who say we simply don't have any level of reserves. It's got to be bottom line, because that's the KPI that we're set. That's what the trustees are asking the chief exec. That's what the chief exec's asking for me. So, but you are not an organisation that's awash with huge amounts of spare cash. You're not struggling, but it wasn't, you're not profligate in any way. And I'm fascinated by the fact that actually relaxing, let's not think about the money, let's think about relationships, let's think about actions, let's think about what we can do, has naturally led to twice over a 12% increase in revenue income.
Yeah, we do have healthy reserves, Ash, and we do have the dependent.
I was trying to undersell it a bit. I didn't want to be
all air ambulances tend to have pretty good reserves because they're so expensive to run. So we do have healthy reserves. I think the thing that gives us real confidence is the strength of our lottery and regular giving programs, because that dependable income will go into next financial year and the year after and the year after that.
Yeah.
So that enables us a bit of flexibility. But what I would say is that anyone can bring a bit of this into their methodology and their way of working. So just finding a bit of space and a bit of time to focus on relationships, on working out what those levers are. It's a really healthy exercise, and you'll start to see the benefit, even if you still want to have income in there as a KPI for individuals. Yeah,
sure. I think that's really interesting, and it's something that I think you've all touched on, is that you've got to get out there. And the fact that, Ruth, when you were first saying we felt, we can't ask, and then you were saying no, there's a need, there's still a problem, there's still a solution to that problem. We can be the conduit for that, to allow people to achieve something magnificent. So when you did ask, people did respond. And again, if you give people the opportunity, if we are proactive and excited, I'm always drawn back to one of the first charities I ever worked with was Shelter. And I didn't know at the time that Shelter was set up on the back of a Ken Loach film, Kathy Come Home, which was a semi-documentary. So it was a film about a young family being evicted. Oh, Amy started screen sharing. Hello, Amy. So Amy's taking control of the slides. Hopefully you'll be able to see the slides now. Apparently it wasn't working on my MacBook. But the charity was set up following on this Ken Loach film, following a young family being evicted and being made homeless, and what the experience. And it was just the family that were actors. Everyone else were real policemen and real social workers, etc., to get the real experience. And the public outrage, the anger to that situation was so great that the charity was formed really quickly afterwards. But it's that passion and that power. All of us work for organizations that didn't exist at some point until someone said, hang on, this is awful. We've got to do something about this. And it's that drive and that passion that comes through. And I think that there are times for me where we lose that sense of, we follow the process. And Keith, I'm really encouraged by what you're saying, is about, let's just go back to this. It's about human relationships, about conversations, it's about communication, and what do we do? And actually you have those honest, real, passionate, proactive conversations, and we get results from that. Ruth, can I ask you about the personal touch thing? There's a number of charities that I've talked to where what I really like is when there's a bit of time available, people have taken things, and you talked about systems. I like the fact that you're talking about systems, because this is a great time to be thinking about the back end stuff. Yeah. Let's make sure so that when easier times do return, and they will, because they always have done, and they always will do, then you've got the opportunity to sort your life out a bit, haven't you, and sort your structure and process out. The personal touch thing, how is that? So was that an internal phone team that you put together? Was that everyone joining in?
Yes, that's internal. So we have done some external telemarketing, conversion and upgrading of regular donors. But this, the thing that I mentioned earlier about the touch point for new regular donors and for those who cancel, is an internal thing. We don't have so many that we can't manage that internally. And the point is it's very, very simple. It's to for the new ones to welcome them and to make sure that they feel valued really personally, and just trying to improve supporter journey overall. I think that's something that that's really the next piece of the puzzle for us, is trying to think more holistically about supporter journey and how we get the information we need from our CRM in a good time frame to be able to feed that into journeys and follow up better, because we've seen through increasing our investment in some paid socials and paid Google campaigns and that kind of thing around things like the Turkey Syria earthquake. We've seen new donors come through, but I don't think that we're following up brilliantly yet. I think that's the next piece of the puzzle for us, is how do we connect that through so that people are treated, they don't just funneled into business as usual. I'm sure that's bread and butter for a lot of people, but I think for us, we changed databases in the past few years. We're on a new e-marketing platform, and so we need to figure all of that out moving forward.
Okay. 1 second. Sorry, I've lost you on screen. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Okay, I've lost the screen, so apologies. We're having technical challenges here, so I shall plow on through.
Sure.
I think the phone is really important. When I obviously am a complete dinosaur, and I started my fundraising career as a telephone fundraiser in 1993, and when I sort of then began working for major national charities in the sort of following 10 years, everyone used the phone. We used the phone all the time. It's a brilliant way of just talking to your supporters, of talking to them about your need, of getting an ask across, of hearing their opinions and hearing what they needed to talk about. But it was also just a really great human connection way. And I think we've lost a lot of that. Obviously, with the change in GDPR, we feel that we can't phone people, but actually, Ruth, as you know, that the telephone campaigns you've recently undertaken for yourselves, it remains still a really positive way of communicating.
Yes, overall it is really positive, and we've used an external company quite a few times over the past couple of years, and it's been positive to use the same one, because then they can build up knowledge of us. You tend to get a little bit of feedback, I think, on telemarketing. Not everybody loves it, but that's the real minority. I think a lot of supporters, they find it just a good point of connection with the organisation, and they get to share their opinions. Particularly, a lot of our supporters are people who give, or also people who volunteer, who do things for us in the community as well. So they're able to talk about that then whenever they're on the phone.
My two favourites, I think, were the telephone team that was set up by one of the joint hospices we supported, and they had a volunteer fundraising coordinator, and who built a little in-house volunteer telephone team who would call, I think it was the first Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from the fundraising team office from 6 till 8, and they would do the kind of calls you're talking about: regular giving, follow-up, chasing down sponsorship for big events, for marathons, that kind of thing, donor care, thank yous, that kind of stuff. And it was just a really lovely use of people speaking to people and just engaging, communicating. And my other one was where we did a large appeal for one of our hospice clients, and we suggested blithely in a meeting at one point that the trustees might like to pick up the phone and say thank you to supporters, and they went, oh, okay, go on then, because they thought they had to, and they did it, and they absolutely loved it. So you had trustees, I think each of them phoned 6 or 7 higher value supporters who'd supported this particular campaign. Each trustee absolutely loved the experience and came back glowing with these wonderful conversations they had, and could we do some more, please? And the supporters came back saying, how magnificent, I've just had a trustee of the charity phone me. And further donations came in on the back of those calls. So it's a really, people get scared of speaking to people on the phone these days. We're also used to the email and social media. Just having phone calls is a really brilliant communication option, I think. Michael, can you hear me, Michael?
Yeah.
All right, and can you see me?
Yes.
Right, so okay, all right, I'll still have to behave. Okay, so yeah, my screen's, you lot completely gone, so I'm just staring into space at the moment. I was really interested about the events. I was with a chief exec yesterday who was saying that her experience of event stuff and looking at the big ticket stuff, so the marathons and rides and that kind of thing, just as you were saying, later signups, but also people coming in saying, I'd like to do the event. I don't mind paying the whole fee myself, but please, can I not fundraise? Are you getting any of that?
Yeah, we're not getting people ask us directly if they can't fundraise, but there've been conversations internally we've had where actually, for some of them, it is it's not a huge amount that we're asking them to fundraise, so they can go, do you know what, I'm not going to ask my friends, my family, I'm just going to pay the donation fee, well, the sign-up fee and the fundraising target themselves. I think part of that comes down to we only have a small circle of people that we ask.
Yeah.
And actually, if you end up doing a few events, which some of our events do, they'll do a few during the year, they're asking the same people constantly to fundraise for them, and it's difficult. We have found actually some of the smaller target ones are better, and probably getting more sign-ups for them. Our Loughborough Fire Walk last month, prime example of that. We had first time we've ever done the event, didn't really know what to expect from it. We had just over 40 people take part, 200 people came down to watch, which is incredible, and actually a lot of them have gone, when's the next one, but we want to sign up for it. So already we're literally planning next year's Loughborough Fire Walk.
Right, okay.
Based on the back of people seeing it and going, I want to sign up for that. It's not a massive fundraising target that they need to achieve. The registration fee is quite small in today's kind of climate, especially with your London Marathon, your Great North Runs. We've actually found in the last week, I don't know, Keith and Ruth, whether you found the same for London Marathon Place, if you have them, that there's been an influx of people applying for the limited charity places we have, because the ballot results are out. People have found out they haven't got a place. We've not actually done any active promotion of our places because they fill so quickly anyway that we don't need to. And we've got people applying to run for us in the next London Marathon based on that, which is great.
Excellent. Okay. One of the things that you said, also want to pick up, Michael, just briefly, and I'm aware of the time, we're kind of halfway through, and I want to start taking some questions, and please ask questions, guys, as you listen to this. Is the you're talking about regular giving rather than lottery? So have you're having that conversation, Michael, about? And Keith, I'm looking at you and saying this because we were having that conversation, weren't we, for a couple of 6 or so weeks ago, about saying what's the difference between regular giving and lottery? That's fascinating that you seem to be getting people looking at one, not the other, at the moment. Yeah,
it is interesting. I don't know whether the I guess the gambling side of it, especially there's so much out there at the moment in the wider world about gambling and betting and pros and cons on that. I'm thinking in sport terms, especially. There's elements around that people kind of maybe aren't comfortable enough is playing. We're looking at doing our so we're doing an annual super draw, which is a souped up version of our lottery where the prize is slightly bigger. It's £3,000 rather than a grand or a holiday. And we spoke to some families who would like to feature as our case studies for that, and they've all turned around and said no because of the gambling side of it. Like it doesn't fall within their beliefs. But yeah, regular giving, we are seeing an increase, and some of that is down to, Ruth touched on it perfectly, the personal touch. We are calling more of our supporters to thank them. Not just our fundraising team, our senior leadership team are calling supporters, new supporters, or ones that are given a bigger amount. We're calling that the major donors, and again, that personal touch, making it more personal. We're only touching the tip of the iceberg here. We know there's a lot more that we can be and should be doing. And interesting, Keith and Ruth, you've both said things today that I've jotted down, and I'll probably be pinging you both an email to find out a bit more later on.
Well, Keith, we were talking about the regular giving versus lottery, weren't we, last time we met? And and again, that view that there's an opportunity you think there for you.
Yeah, well, we're ploughed head first into that. The lottery for us, air ambulances generally are set up on the back of their lotteries. Ours started, I think, before we even had an aircraft, and we've worked with the same partner since inception. And for us, we thought the time was right. Lottery accounted for about 52 to 54% of our income every year, and yet we thought the time was right to perhaps bring lottery not to an end, but to cease canvassing and cease face-to-face fundraising on the lottery side, and instead push that resource towards regular giving. And I'm conscious one of my the representatives of my wonderful lottery and regular giving partners is here. So Jen, give me the secret signal if I say too much.
Hi.
And our wonderful partners were very willing to give that a whirl. For us, it just means that we can foster a better long-term relationship with those donors. All of our lottery players thought they were regular givers anyway. They weren't in it for the prize. They were just there as regular givers, but regular givers who couldn't give us gift aid. So for us, just making that shift over there, slightly more value per person who supports us, and better opportunity for us to nurture that into a long-term relationship with those people, leading to major gifts, legacies, and everything else. And so far, it's working really well. It's great. We're getting better data as well, and so we're able to communicate with those people. And next time we come around to doing a DM campaign, we've got thousands more records landing in our database, and we know so much more about those people that we can really make that sing. Okay.
Thank you for that. Guys, I'm going to move on to the next question and just ask you very briefly. So Ruth, picking on you again, because you the last speech. So looking back at the last year, what was your biggest win? What's the thing you look back on the last 12 months and go, do you know what? That's the thing I'm most pleased about. That was the best success for us.
Oh, that's too hard, Ash. The one thing.
What are the many things that you think?
I'll be very quick. Okay, so leveraging emergencies, that sounds terrible, but kind of humanitarian crises are the one time whenever the general public are looking for us and the kind of work that we do. Sure. So investing more digitally in that, we were able to do that for the earthquake in February, and we definitely found that that was a way that we got some new supporters, which has been a challenge for us over the past few years. So we're really pleased about that. It's definitely something we want to continue. We did a big gift aid review and reset, which took, gosh, I don't know how many months, Ellie can tell me, lots of months, that we did with Pebblebeach. And we did it because we changed databases in the past few years, and we wanted to make sure that we were really doing it in the best possible way, using the best processes. Everything was working like a beautifully well-oiled machine. So that involved DM, EM, telemarketing, a review of processes with us and our sister organisation, Christian Aid, and then putting some new things in place. And that was massive for us. I think that has helped our team, feel more confident moving forward in our own processes and in ourselves in using those well. It's helped us to be able to claim about £250,000 in gift aid. So that is really wonderful. And that's been a big win for us and something we're, we'll definitely use moving forward.
I think
more to say, but I'll cut it off there, Ash.
No, that's fine. No, I think the gift aid one is really important. I think it's also, I think there's a kind of moral imperative to that as well. I think, Keith, is what you're saying about regular givers versus lottery players. If we can say, look, it's our job to maximize the benefit of everything that we get from in your support, whether that's volunteering time, whether that's giving us money. And so, if we're taking donations from individuals, it's beholden on us to do pretty much everything that's reasonably possible to make sure that we're getting all the tax efficiency that we can on that we're keeping the data properly so we can communicate efficiently, because that's how we invest their money to the best effect for them as well and for our beneficiaries. And at the moment, I think that if there is a quieter time, it is an opportunity to get those processes and structures in. And gift aid's free money. The joy of that is that you've got £250,000 of gift aidable income that is now accessible, and that's an amazing benefit. That's an entire appeal's worth of income, and you can go and do some magnificent stuff with that now.
And we're able to use that as an opportunity for a connection again, Ash. It's that personal touch. All of those phone calls, all of the different things are another way to build connection with supporters and to reassure them that we are trying to maximize and do our very best.
Cool. Michael, just quickly, biggest win last 12 months? What are you happiest with? What are you most excited about?
I think it's to try new things. So we've had quite a few new team members join the wider team, and actually encouraging them to try new things, think outside the box, think outside the rainbow's bubble, and see. And we've been fortunate that restrictions are eased, so we can our open day. We've got wonderful facilities that we can bring people around to show them, and we are doing more of that with the team, which is great. I think actually our biggest win is our team.
Excellent. Keith, what would yours be? What would you say?
I'm going to do a shameless Pebblebeach plug here, Ash. Is that all right? I imagine it probably is.
Well, that money in the envelope is not there for nothing, is it?
Good. So is gift aidable? I imagine it is, yeah. So I said at the beginning that we emerged from the pandemic with not much in the way of a major donor, of any major donor activity, and certainly we didn't even really know who was on our database, truth be told. So we called him, Ash and the team at Pebblebeach, to pull together a mailing campaign for us. What I didn't tell Ash was that actually, if that had just washed its face and broken even, I'd have been happy, as long as it identified 2 or 3 people who could go on to become major givers for this charity. But ultimately, it did both things. It generated very significant immediate income. But now we also have this wonderful data set of people who can give at different levels. We understand what our database looks like, and we're starting to nurture those people, put on specific events for them, and really bring them into the heart of the charity and do more with them. And that's really paying dividends. So that for us, which is a data piece, not really a fundraising piece, but the fundraising was a very welcome bonus. That has just really given us so much momentum on that major donor bit.
Yeah, you certainly didn't tell us about that wash your face aspiration, Keith. I shall have to have words with you afterward.
Oh, and I hope you forget this conversation by the next time we come around for the next one.
But no, it wasn't it again. It was a really good example of the fact that we went in going, okay, and as I think we said right at the start, if we're going to do this, let's make sure that we do it absolutely properly. And Ruth, that was the same conversation. And Michael, you know how we work. It's all about, we have this one chance, so let's get the audience stuff right. Let's get the data stuff right so we understand the audience. Let's try and have individual one-to-one conversations with everyone if we possibly can, using the strength of the data. Let's have powerful, strong, tangible fundraising propositions. Let's give people the opportunity to be the magnificent human beings we all hope they can be. And you know what? If they respond, if they come back to it, then we've won. But we should never be in a position where we say, oh, maybe we should have, maybe we could have done a bit more with that. Maybe we should have added that channel in. If we look back and go, that was the best we could have possibly done, and then we get the benefit result. And Keith, your point right at the start about taking away the fundraising, the initial fundraising target has been more relaxed on the income. I've spoken to a number of charities that said, yeah, we can't get 3 to 1 from a campaign, so we're not going to do it. And he's like, well, no, hang on a minute. So if you're getting 2 to 1, is that not okay? 2 to 1, but continuing to develop really strong relationship with your supporter base, is that not okay? It's all right to say to people, do you know what? If you can't, it's not a problem. Absolutely fine. We quite a lot of the campaigns that we would do have engagement opportunities. Keith, we did with your campaign, that worked really well. People saying hello to the new doctors that were joining the team. And we said, you know, if you can't give, that's fine, but please still do engage. Please be part of our team, be part of our community. And that offer, Ruth, is what you're saying on the phone as well, isn't it? That connection saying, do you know what? This is fine. It's a journey we're all on together. This is okay. And if you can't give right now, that's fine. There are other ways that you can still be a really valuable part of this charity and still stay connected to the work we're trying to deliver. We've not let Andrew speak. Andrew, you sat very patiently in silence. And Andrew, I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you for making time for us. I wanted you to just sort of, as our trusts guru, what would be your kind of distillation of the points we talked about? So what's been your experience of the last 12 months? What are you seeing? Where are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? What are the successes that's happening in the trust world at the moment?
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm a freelance fundraiser and consultant, but I'm also a trustee of 3 charities, including a grant-making trust in Brighton. So I'm privileged in being able to see what's going on kind of from, you know, both sides really, both sides of the coin, and it's definitely extremely tough out there. We're seeing a lot of very you know, good charities with firm fundraising records struggling. We're seeing some charities folding. Often, you know, a few locally I can think of where it's just been a combination of rising costs, reducing fundraising, sometimes big grants all finishing at the same time, plus recruitment challenges, particularly in sort of health and social care on the back of Brexit. So it's undoubtedly extremely tough out there. Kind of, I suppose, some of the challenges I've been seeing, particularly with grant fundraising and trust fundraising, is just how to get your applications to really pop. How to bring them to the attention of funders. And I think, you know, both with my fundraising and my funders hat on, I think the thing to remember is that the funders haven't changed. They're still there to give money away. And your job is to identify the solution, identify the need and the solution, which dovetails with the charitable objectives of the funder in question. So that's kind of, just don't forget that as the basic. And also, I think it's very easy to blame yourself. I'm getting calls every day from fundraisers going, is it me? I'm just, this has worked in the past, this is just not working at the moment. What I would say is it is almost certainly not you. If you've been successful in the past, it's remarkably tough out there. It's also challenging for funders as well. Funders are, it's a chaotic situation for them as well. They're trying to make their money go as far as they possibly can. They're trying to decide whether they should be making, more small grants to more charities or fewer large grants to charities. They're trying to decide whether to, eat into their endowments and spend some of the capital. So it's very tricky for both sides. One of the recurring issues that we're seeing as well is around reserves, the old thorny issue of reserves, whether they're too high or too low. And it's a challenge for a trust fundraiser in either scenario, actually. Most would prefer to be in the second camp, but of course, if you've got perhaps more than 12 months of reserves, well, that's a real challenge. And so whichever scenario, whichever category you fall into, it's so important that you have that clear narrative about why your free reserves are where they're at. And one of my real bugbears is around why trust fundraisers are very rarely brought into conversations with finance directors, with trustees, and with the accountants about how you present the free reserves in the annual accounts. You think about it, trusts are probably one of the few audiences that actually read your annual report and your accounts. And yet, so often, you'll be reading a reserve statement and it will be just so opaque, full of jargon, and you're none the wiser. So I think, I'm almost sort of inclined to start a campaign trying to get, clear reserve statements in annual reviews and reports, because it's, at the end of the day, it's a very important tool for trusts and foundations. In terms of as a freelance fundraising consultant, I'm more in the background. I'm not usually asking for money, and if I am, I've got someone else's name at the bottom of the letter. But in terms of, so it's more about satisfying moments, and a few satisfying moments from this year. Perhaps my most satisfying was going to the opening and the ribbon cutting of Pond House in Wadhurst. Pond House is a home for learning disabled young adults who are part of the Camp Hill community in Wadhurst. And we've been working with them for the last 3 years, helping them raise over 600,000 to refurbish Pond House in Wadhurst. So kind of a traditional capital campaign. But what was so satisfying about it was the team there had done no fundraising ever. So it was as much about skills exchange, skills transfer, hand-holding, as it was about actually bringing the money in. So once being there, seeing the ribbon cut, being shown around this new building by those young adults who were going to be living there was just a joyous occasion. If I can just have another charity we've been working with about 9 years, the Special Needs Nursery in West Sussex. Back in 2014, they were about to go bust. They issued redundancy notices to all of their staff, all the nursery staff. And we came in and we kind of just helped them take stock of the situation. Got some support from West Sussex County Council. There was a stay of execution. I met with them last week, and they are now, 9 years on, just about a turnover £1 million. And just seeing that and how they've done that and how they've completely pivoted their income generation model. They've turned it on its head. They've gone from being purely a special needs nursery to being one that admits mainstream children alongside those with special needs and disabilities, integrating everybody. And then we've been doing the grant fundraising, securing restricted income for the special needs work, which are mainly salaries. And so that model has transformed the charity over 9 years. So the takeaway from that is just, just take a few steps back, try and adopt a more creative approach to your fundraising, and be in it for the long game, think long term, and that's what they did.
Thank you, Andrew. I think just to echo that, I think it's where charities are struggling to identify their need and their proposition. I think that's where they're really struggling. That kind of just general, we do nice things for nice people just isn't good enough anymore, and funders want to know. Andrew, your famous "so what" question that we ask quite a lot of the time about the proposition. So what is the problem? What is the solution? And again, we should be giving everyone the opportunity to deliver something specific and tangible. I agree. I think the intent success is and we'll take questions in just a second. If you've got any questions, please do ask them. Juan has a really good one. It's a salary. So the challenge was to raise from scratch £638,000 for an organisation that had never fundraised a pound before in its life, had no fundraising staff during a pandemic. I mean, it's kind of. And they had almost no budget as well. So it was like our role was to try and just filter down to the most important things we could do. But the work that we did there for this tiny little organization would be very familiar with Michael, Ruth, Keith, the stuff that we do with you. It's about audience first and who do we know and where are the opportunities. And through doing that particular exercise, Keith, your conversation about data earlier, we identified one individual who had significant potential. We pitched her with a lead gift opportunity of £100,000 and she took it. And that was the springboard of the campaign. But it started from understanding audience and building cases of support and being specific and being tangible and being passionate and telling the stories of the young adults who are going to be living in this semi-supported accommodation option. The other things I think that for me is about that proactivity. Ruth said right at the start, don't be afraid to get out there and don't be afraid to have conversations. I was reminded I had a catch up and an appeal. We did an appeal for one of our clients recently and we were looking through the results. It did okay. It was about 2-to-1 return on investment. It was all right. It wasn't brilliant. Wasn't horrible, but it was okay. It was okay. We were happy, not delighted. And we were looking back at the segment results, and what had happened was that most segments were depressed. They hadn't really, the response rate was down. The average gift was okay, but the response rate was down for pretty much all segments, apart from a group of lottery players and smaller groups of people. And we were talking about these. Well, why? We were getting really great response rates from those, much, much better than we would expect, and good average as well. And in conversation, it turns out that obviously as an agency, we were there and we kind of delivered an appeal for this charity. But they had effectively down tools and not communicated, and not really had a strategy during the pandemic. They said, right, Ruth, as you said, we just need to leave people alone. We can't be putting pressure on people. And they hadn't spoken to their database effectively for 18 months. But they had with their lottery players. They had a separate comms plan for lottery players. And they'd had this wonderful comms thing and said, thank you. And this is what your lottery is doing. And they said, so when they actually reached out with a cash appeal, the lottery peers were like, yeah, great. And they were really supportive and they're really passionate. And it just shows you the difference. And that's my big fear. And it's not about employing an agency like us. It's about actually doing that stuff in-house. This is, even if you can't ask for money, you can ask for compassion. You can ask for engagement. You can ask for motivation. You can ask for, intellectual support. And this is absolutely the time for us to be telling our supporters, it's not just about the big cash donations that makes our relationship special. You are important to us and the community we serve for a lot of different reasons, a lot of different ways that you can engage. And I think we've got to be so proactive in reaching out with that communication and have that passion as well. We are 1/4 hour to go. So I'm going to say 10 minutes to go. So Lucy, would you, are you able to forward any questions that we've had from the audience?
You haven't had any. It's been
haven't had any?
No.
So guys, we've answered, there's literally nothing that we've talked about that we haven't answered. Okay. In that case, let's talk about the final question. So what's the most optimistic thing? Keith, I'm going to start with you because you were last all the time. So looking forward to, let's say 24, rest of 23 and 24, what are you most excited about? Where are the opportunities? What have you got your biggest hopes on? Apart from your flight simulator in a van, which obviously we're all incredibly jealous of.
That was going to be my answer.
It was going to be all right. Okay, fair enough.
So we have a flight simulator in a van, which is opening doors left, right, and centre, and that's awesome. And it's not like it's sort of my idea, but really I was trying to emulate what World Vision do with the World Vision huts, you know, sort of experience for people in a shopping centre, etc. So I'm keen to see where that goes and what my next iteration of that is. There's some weird and wonderful ideas floating around my head.
Is that you driving the van, by the way? Is that, are you, I mean, have you got like a cap that you wear when you're driving the van around? Is that?
It's a string vest.
All right, okay.
Old school. Yeah. And what else am I excited about? So we're seeing, so our approach at the moment is about going out there and creating opportunities. And I think one of the things that's doing for us really well at the moment is opening up networks on the Isle of Wight. So it's traditionally quite difficult, even with the words Isle of Wight in your name, to break into the Isle of Wight. They're quite parochial. But I think us being able to take some of our mass participation events over there, because we were not so worried about ROI, because obviously it's expensive on the ferry and everything else, has given us more of a presence there. And that is creating this huge opportunity among the limited, but generally quite wealthy and very supportive population on the island. So I'm really keen to see where that goes, and equally keeping pushing that regular giving bit, and seeing those numbers increase. I think there's some exciting stuff happening there. And corporate number of corporates that are coming on board at the moment could mean we have a really, really good year next year.
I think corporates are a sleeping giant at the moment. I think we've all seen corporate income fall off a cliff, haven't we? Because everyone's watching their budgets. But as this comes back now, that will re-engage, and corporates are looking for opportunities. It's not just about giving, it's about staff motivation as well. It's about opportunities for engagement. I absolutely think that if we're doing the let's not worry about the income so much, then the corporate is absolutely the place to be thinking about that. I think there's a huge opportunity for building relationships and building opportunities of communication that will then lead to, at the point they then suddenly rediscover they've got a charity budget, you're at the top of the queue because you're the one with the relationship.
Yeah, and you know, it fits with our methodology and our ethos. All those people at that corporate, they're individuals who may choose to become a regular giver, a legacy giver, whatever it may be. So yeah, just getting in and getting in front of people, whether it be at a village fete or at their place of work, it fits for us, and it seems to be working well.
Michael, how about you? What's so the rest of this year, 24? What are you looking forward to?
You touched on it earlier, Ash, about is kind of reaching out wider from our Loughborough base into the East Midlands region. Actually, the opportunities that's going to bring with it. So we are introducing nursing hospitals. We've got them in Northampton, Nottingham, Leicester. We're looking at Derby and Lincoln, and actually the opportunity that's going to bring to reach a new audience, reach corporates like Keith has mentioned, and actually just try some new things. We've just done a review of our individual giving kind of program setup, so we'll be kind of going through the findings of that and just trying some new stuff and enhancing what we're already doing. Cool. I think the new audience in these areas where we're not as well known will be key.
Excellent. Okay, Ruth, how about you? So what's on the horizon for you?
Sure. So we, over the past 6 months as a team, worked on a new strategy for the next 3 years. So we'll be trying to embed that, figuring out how to measure that, figuring out how to make that happen. That Keith reminded me of this. We've been developing an exhibition which shows how we respond in emergencies, because people have been so generous in giving to those things. So we want to take that into spaces where people are gathering, particularly our key audiences, and have something tangible that people can see and feel and touch. So to kind of increase understanding. Research shows that in both Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland, there are lots of people who identify as Christians, which is obviously a very natural audience for us, but they don't attend church. So how are we reaching those people? We've traditionally gone church by church and spoken to groups, and I'm sure we'll still continue to do that, but we've got to find ways to connect with these other groups of people who aren't going to church on a Sunday. And with a limited budget, that's a challenge, but I think that's an exciting challenge for us as we move forward. The last thing I wanted to say is, just as I was reflecting on the questions that you posed and thinking about all of this, I I was thinking about how it's so tempting as a fundraiser to look at other organizations and to always think, oh, I wish we'd thought of that, or I wish we had the budget for that, or why did they partner with them and not us? And, it's because a lot of the outputs are quite, external, and you can see what's going on. So it's easy to feel that, but you've got to remember that every organization has a context, and we're at a particular point in time for our organization, and what works for you might not necessarily work for us, or what success for us might just be that next step rather than that 10 steps away where you might be. And it's really important to celebrate the wins through all of that, I think, and generally with cake in my experience, but you can choose.
I think we all know that the reason we get into fundraising in the first place is the liberal supply of cake that we have in the various places in our offices. So we shouldn't hide from that any further. Guys, thank you very much indeed. I just wanted a reflection from me as an old person who's been doing this for 30 years now. I really get the sense that what we're learning is that the traditional methods of communication, community engagement are being re-realized and re-understood as so important. And I think it's interesting that there's so much progress and move towards digital communication and how we communicate mass market. Actually, when push comes to shove, when we really need the support of people, we just go and talk to them and we explain why, and they give us a reaction. And that's old school fundraising. We happen to deliver that methodology through different media now and a different media mix, but it's basically the same thing as it's always been. It's shelter in 1966. This situation is awful. We should do something about this. Right then, we'll organize it. Could you support us? And that's where all charities come from. And that's, in a way, I think the opportunity that many of us have is to get out of that cyclical revenue thing that we've been in, where we do the same thing every year and Christmas always at the same time. We do that thing. Do you know what? No, we're on a journey now. And our journey for all of our charities is from this kind of semi-weird position out there to a point of new ambition, of new achievement, of new safety, and the new cyclical revenue position. Michael, you moving into Derbyshire and Lincolnshire, for example, there's new adventures and new things happening. And that passion, that forward movement is what is going to excite and inspire our audiences. But we have to communicate that passion, that opportunity with them, and we have to do that in the way that's most appropriate. Ruth, Michael, Keith, can I just say thank you so much for giving us some of your really valuable time in the middle of the day. I'm going to take the fact that we had no questions as a massive win, in that you managed to answer everyone's potential questions through your contributions already. So we didn't have that. However, I will open the door to say if anyone wishes to ask any questions of anyone on the panel, and I'm sure, guys, we can if there's a specific question that's relevant to your charities, we can forward those through to you so that you can connect with people who've got a specific question. Of course, we are here as we have done working with these three lovely guys. We're here to answer any questions, support. You're always free to get in touch with us and say hi and ask us anything you want about anything you want, and we'll always give you an honest opinion, and we won't try and sell you anything. We'll try and help you. I hope this was useful for you. Hope you enjoyed that. We wish you all the very best for your fundraising. Have courage. Have faith, be positive, be proactive, be the amazing fundraisers you are, allow your audiences to be the amazing supporters they can be, and everything will be well. There'll be another webinar along at some point in after the summer holidays. Oh, and eat more cake. Yes, I said thank you. Yes, don't forget the cake. We'll be along in the autumn, I'm sure, with further webinars. But for now, thank you very much indeed for your time, and we'll catch up again with you very soon. All the best now.
Thanks, Ash.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.